Hello?
What happened?
Police. I don't know. This house is big. I don't know where my little cousin is. So can you please?
Where is the 3-month-old baby?
The baby is on my mama's kitchen counter with his head smashed. Now I need you to please send
Okay, is it a male or female?
know where my little cousin is at. Now if a girl pop up with a weapon, I'm not gonna have a little cousin no more. So can you please? I know the protocol. Can you please send the police?
As unsettling as this discovery was, there was something even more horrifying lurking close by. The killer was hiding somewhere in the house.
Is the baby breathing?
Listen, lady, the baby is deceased.
Okay. All right, we're setting the police and an ambulance, okay?
It's Mama.
What is your name, sir?
Mama, son. Hello,
What is your name?
I'm Robert Stewart.
On December 4th, 2014, 20-year-old Deasia Watkins and her boyfriend James Brown welcomed their healthy baby girl, Janiyah Watkins, into the world. At first, everything seemed to be going well for the young couple. Deasia was thrilled to become a mother, and after a difficult childhood of her own, she vowed to give her daughter the love she had never received. However, no one could have predicted the nightmare that would soon unfold. It all began on January 25, 2015, around midnight, when Chepia police were dispatched to the apartment where the family lived. Neighbors had been alarmed by Deasia's screams and baby Janiyah's cries, and several calls were made to 911. When the police arrived, Deasia refused to open the door. After officers threatened to force entry, the door was opened by a young man, later identified as Jane's cousin, Chris Gully. Immediately, law enforcement officers noticed a strong odor of marijuana and observed that Deasia's behavior seemed erratic. According to official case notes, when an officer attempted to take Janiyah from Deasia's arms out of concern for the baby's safety, Deasia allegedly attempted to choke the 7-week-old infant. EMTs were called to the scene to conduct welfare checks on both Deasia and Janiyah. Eventually, they managed to take Janiyah from her mother, while Deasia suddenly passed out on the floor. The cause of her unconsciousness was unclear, but she was soon transported to Deaconess Hospital for psychiatric care and placed on a 72-hour investigative hold. By the next day, Deasia was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Marijuana was found in her system, though she initially denied using it. Deasia was prescribed antipsychotic medication, but due to the side effects, she was told she would have to stop nursing Janiyah. Staff soon became concerned about Deasia's apparent lack of understanding regarding the severity of the situation. Case notes indicated that Deasia downplayed the incident, describing it as no big deal. By January 30th, Deasia had returned to the apartment and a safety plan was put in place. She was allowed supervised contact with Janiyah, provided she took her prescribed medication and had either James or his sister Jalisha present at all times. However, when a caseworker visited, it became clear that Deasia wasn't fully committed to the plan. She hadn't filled her prescription for the antipsychotic medication, and the caseworker stressed that it was critical for Deasia to take her medication for Janiyah's safety. James made it clear that Deasia would have to leave the home if she didn't comply, as the apartment lease was allegedly under his name. Reluctantly, Deasia agreed. She didn't want to be separated from her daughter, and she had nowhere else to go. However, these concerns were soon overshadowed by the tragedy that was about to unfold. A week later, during an unannounced visit, the caseworker was unable to verify whether Deasia had filled her prescription. Over the next few weeks, the situation continued to spiral. By the end of February, Deasia had moved in with her aunt, abandoning the apartment. It was clear that the situation was no longer working, and things were about to take an even darker turn. On March 6, custody proceedings began. Since paternity had not been established and a mental health assessment was required, the magistrate granted custody to the Hamilton County Department of Job and Family Services. In the interim, Janiyah was placed in the care of Deasia's aunt, Deborah Stewart. Neither Deasia nor James were allowed to see Janiyah, and Deborah agreed to comply with the terms. During a caseworker's visit, Deborah confirmed that she had not allowed Deasia to contact Janiyah and that the baby was thriving. However, behind the scenes, things were far from what they seemed. Deasia had been spending significant time with Janiyah, much more than she had admitted. In fact, she had moved into Deborah's home days earlier. Deborah, dealing with her own personal struggles and health problems, found caring for a baby on her own too overwhelming. Despite having explicitly agreed not to let Diazia have contact with Janiyah, Deborah allowed her to stay. Just 3 days after the caseworker's visit, a horrific tragedy unfolded within Deborah's home. Early one morning, a frantic 911 call was made, and what had been a fragile situation quickly turned into a nightmare.
Yeah, Robert.
I'm sorry, I want to take us to the emergency.
Please send the police.
What is the address?
5957 Wildwood.
Okay, then. You were just talking to somebody. Who were you just talking to?
My son, he came over here. I was fleeing.
Ma'am, you weren't signed, but I heard you talking to him. You were fine, and then when I said you started crying, I need you to tell me what's going on.
The dispatcher, trying to make sense of the chaotic situation, was struggling to understand what was unfolding. Each piece of information she received only seemed to raise more questions, and her skepticism was evident in her voice. As she spoke with the frantic caller, she carefully tried to piece together the details, but nothing seemed to add up. The conflicting stories, the urgency in the caller's tone, and the strange circumstances surrounding the situation all left the dispatcher questioning what had truly happened.
Help me.
Listen to me. I need you to stop crying, okay? Stop crying. I need you to help. I need you to take a deep breath and tell me what happened.
All I know is my son came in here and what we got and Bob and the baby dead. I'm like, you talking to my son.
How old is the baby?
It was Robert who had arrived at the home just minutes earlier, accompanied by his children. It was his youngest child who first entered the kitchen and was met with a horrifying sight, one that would haunt them forever. Robert, in a state of shock and panic, quickly ushered his children out of the house to safety before rushing back inside, desperate to find his mother, Deborah.
Hello?
What happened?
Police. I don't know. This house is big. I don't know where my little cousin is. So can you please?
Where is the 3-month-old baby?
The baby is on my mama's kitchen counter.
Diazia was nowhere to be found, and Robert's fear intensified. He couldn't shake the terrifying thought that she might have been in danger, or worse, that she had been killed as well. Desperation set in as he frantically searched the house, hoping against hope that she was still alive.
Okay, I need to know what happened to the baby.
I don't know what happened to the baby. I came into the house and told you, came into the house, the baby was on the counter. My mom was in the bed asleep. I woke my mom up and we calling you. That's all I know. I don't know nothing else. No?
Okay, listen to me. Sure. Is the baby breathing?
Listen, lady, the baby is deceased.
The first 2 officers arrived just a few minutes later and immediately entered the home. One officer made his way to the kitchen, where he quickly confirmed the horrifying reality. Baby Janiyah was deceased. Simultaneously, the second officer found Deborah in the bathroom of the master bedroom. Officers on the scene radioed for additional support, and amid the chaos, a few officers began clearing the house. As they made their way through the home, they located Diazia in her bedroom, tucked under the covers. Though she was concealed, her hair was visible. Officers pulled back the covers to find Diazia lying motionless. Without uttering a word, she was handcuffed and escorted to the hallway, where she was placed under the watch of another responding officer. The rest of the home was cleared without incident. With Deborah's house now a crime scene, it was clear the investigation would require thorough processing. The individuals involved were moved to the Criminal Investigation Section, CIS, at the local Cincinnati police station. It was there that the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. But it would take time to uncover the horrendous truth, hidden beneath a tangle of outrageous lies. Gut-wrenching cries echoed from the nearby room where Diazia sat, waiting for detectives to enter. Her sobs filled the tense silence, each one heavy with the weight of the tragedy. Meanwhile, Deborah, completely beyond inconsolable, was overcome with grief. The weight of the situation seemed to crush her, as she struggled to process the horror that had unfolded in her own home. The confusion, pain, and helplessness were evident in her every tear, her sobs ringing out in the room as she grappled with the loss and the unimaginable events that had taken place. More than 2 hours passed before detectives finally entered the room where Diazia sat, still and stoic. She remained eerily calm, her posture rigid, as if the gravity of the situation hadn't fully settled in. The detectives observed her carefully, aware that behind her composed exterior, the truth of what had happened was waiting to be uncovered. Despite the hours of silence, the tension in the room was palpable, as everyone knew the nightmare that had unfolded in the home was far from over. Right away, Diazia set the tone for the interview. She remained silent, neither speaking nor responding to the detectives.
Hi. Good evening. My name's Jen. This is Jake. Are you handcuffed? Would you be more comfortable? I took those off.
The detective began by reading Diazia her Miranda rights.
Right and left-handed. Are you right or left-handed so I can uncuff the other hand? Just forget it. Jake's gonna read something to you. Pay attention to that.
However, Diazia refused to sign the form to acknowledge that she had received and understood her rights.
Here's why I do. If you have any questions on it. You don't want to talk to us?
Dee.
You okay, mate? You don't want to talk to us, so?
Dee.
Sure.
Just spell your name. Spell your name. Can't tell me if you don't talk to me. Okay. I want to make sure you get help that you need, and I can't do that without even knowing who you are. All I know is you go by DD. So how do you spell your name?
Despite the detectives' efforts to elicit a response from Diazia, they were unsuccessful. Shortly thereafter, a team arrived to handle the photographs.
We're going to take some pictures of you. Okay, we're going to do some other photos. I would like to sit down and talk with you to be able to see what you need that we can help you with. But I can't do that unless you talk.
Several minutes later, the photographs were taken, and Diazia's clothing was confiscated and retained as potential evidence.
Stand up. Stand up. Yeah, Baba. Yeah. Stand up. Go ahead and stand up. Let's get pictures right now.
Upon re-entering the room, the detectives continued to run through a gamut of classic interrogation tactics, but each proved ineffective. Nearly 6 hours had passed, and they had gotten nowhere with Diezia. The meeting ultimately came to an end after their unavailing attempts to gain any information from her. She was then transported to the Deaconess Psychiatric Unit, where she once again received treatment and was kept under observation. 3 days later, Diezia was back at the station, seated in front of detectives. This time, however, the interview would prove to be in stark contrast to the one that had taken place previously.
You drinking your water?
Once again, the detective read Diezia her rights. This time she signed the form, acknowledging that she had received and understood her Miranda rights. After a few general questions, the detectives began to work toward unraveling the terrible mess that had led to the unthinkable tragedy. During Deborah's interview 3 days earlier, her sister Cindy assisted in answering questions posed by the detective and addressed this very topic.
We were pregnant for a while. So he was there. I'm quite sometimes how you know, he was very right. You know exactly what I'm doing. You don't have to. Well, I said, I'm going to be right. So you can call the house when you're out. No, sure, I am well. You never completed her. I am never here to ask so many. I'll be that way that I can score it no actually. What's so funny? That's all I keep putting you down. And that's what what's so funny? Why can't you just do it?
Though James had expressed his fear that Janiyah could potentially be taken from him due to this unfortunate issue, he had failed to file for custody. The detective then shifted to another important subject.
And she found my sister one day, like a week ago, and get come to get her. Yesterday, please, they were to say I can't to the house and be trying right now. She gets back on my like, please, somebody come get me. You want me to have her? So he can't. There's the point he can't all, you know, yeah. And she was saying my story. Your life is alive with force. So you will like you're kind of established the power. Why is he on purpose? Why is there, because I mean, like, really, like, last year, like, he was handle responsibility
While it appears that Diezia is clearly under suspicion, perhaps not everything is as it seems.
When you went through your story, how long was you staying there for the piece
Cindy explained that her sister Deborah had been hesitant to take on the responsibility of caring for Janiyah. It seemed she felt obligated to step in, but she wasn't equipped to handle everything that came with it. Perhaps that pressure had an impact on an extreme action she took in a matter of just a split second, one that she would come to desperately regret.
I was down there, I was one lawyer. I told him, they don't talk to her that day. They talked to her and said, maybe he's her lawyer. And I didn't know what was going on. I just said, we all keep saying, yeah, I want you retired, so you keep doing it. So I was like, no, you don't want to do it.
With this line of questioning, everything begins to shift in an unnerving direction.
He got the best of me. when I studied before you know like how long you are today. And like all the out, but you talk to him. Just because you want to do it. You raise your eyes to the light. I'm trying to get you out of it.
The idea was unfathomable, but the alternative was even more unimaginable. Aside from Janiyah, Deazia and Deborah were seemingly the only individuals in the home around the time the terror unfolded. Detectives had to consider the possibility that the combination of Deborah's own personal and medical issues, coupled with the overwhelming responsibility of caring for a baby, had caused her to snap. Perhaps in the depths of her own struggles, Deazia's reality had turned into a mother's worst nightmare, and her own aunt had tragically taken Janiyah's life.
You know how I got over that. Obviously, at some point, you may have to say, do you remember what happened? How was it easy? Do you think that you didn't compensate on me? Either you are getting or you may have